Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Grieving Voices. If this is not your first time listening, and if it is, welcome. Today, my guest is a recap episode, a Where Are They Now, with my second guest of Grieving Voices when I first launched in 2020, Patti, Herr. And so thank you so much for being here and catching us all up on the past 3 years. Can you believe it? Almost 3 years.
Crazy.
It'll be 3 years in September since we initially recorded. That's
That is
wild to
crazy.
me. So the original episode was episode 13, and it was titled Widow, Miscarriage, and IVF. And a lot's changed for you. So let's go back in time and talk about a little bit about that struggle with becoming pregnant and your life at that time and what has happened since.
Well, it wasn't fresh, but the being a widow was still fresh, I guess. And when I got pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? I mean, obviously know how, but why, I couldn't give my first husband, a baby, and now I'm pregnant with someone who isn't my husband. And so that was a struggle to do. But now looking back, it's crazy how I feel like he placed every single child into my life. He knew.
So you had a struggle getting pregnant and you went through IVF. How, and I know your last child though.
He was an oopsie. It was a surprise.
Yeah, it was not IVF. So can you explain a little bit like what you've learned about infertility and about all of that, experience?
I questioned it. I was like, did we need to do IVF? Did we need to spend all this money? Like, why, how did we get pregnant so quickly after Nori, blah, blah, blah. But absolutely, secondary infertility is still a thing. And I don't think had anything to do with stress or anything. I just think that when you have a baby and when you get pregnant, like your body almost like resets. And I think that's kind of what happened. I think my body reset and I ovulated 1 month and surprise, surprise. And we didn't think we could get pregnant. So
divine timing, I suppose, right?
Yep.
So how far apart are they?
They're 23 months apart because she's December and he's November. So
okay.
Yeah.
It's so fun. My older two are 18 months apart, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. No.
It's hard for me. Nori is kind of hard, but
yes, my last one was a little hard. And but the girls are 2 years apart. So, but I did have them all within 4 years. Yeah. But
I don't know how you did it.
I wouldn't change it. It was crazy. It's, those years are a blur for sure, but I wouldn't change it,
Well, yeah, I think when they get older, it'll be better because they'll have each other. But right now life is crazy. My house is messy. My house is lived in, and yeah, life is good.
Grace.
But 3 is a crowd.
Grace.
Yeah.
Lots of grace to go around.
I always warn people, I'm like, just so you know, I have 3 kids and it's a mess in here.
And why do we think we need to apologize, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
Because some women have their lives together. I do not.
Well, and it's like everybody's circumstances and situations are different too, it's I think in this day and age too, where you're working outside the home and then you come home and, they call that the second shift. That didn't exist for a lot of women way back when,
well, I'm not working right now.
But you are.
Well, I am. Yes, you're right.
You are.
Yeah.
But
we're home all the time. And I think that's part of it is like when you do work, your house stays a little bit cleaner for a little bit longer because the kids aren't in it.
That's true. That's very true.
When you're home all day, they're here all day.
There's a trade-off there. There is a trade-off. Yeah. So you were also a client of mine when we first initially recorded, it was shortly before that, like the year before that, you had gone through the grief recovery program. And how do you think that that has, I mean, does it still influence your life in certain aspects or ways?
Mhm. It's still a huge eye opener for me. Like, I still tell people about it, and it's still kind of like in awe. Like, I went in to do this about my husband who passed away, and I did about someone who was living. Like, it just in awe, like how people grieve and who they grieve, and um, it kind of just puts it into perspective. And I think it's still, and I still like, I don't write letters out anymore, but I do them in my head, kind of, or like in my heart, I guess. Because it's been 9 years, like recently, June 9th was 9 years for me. So, but
Wow.
I mean, I still struggle with that living person every day, every single day. So,
Well, and how have you managed to have a relationship with this person?
um, to kind of make my, not my life easier, but to manage my life and my well-being, I've distanced, I guess, in a way. I'm not close with that person, but I still have a relationship with them.
And I think that's the gift of going through grief recovery is that you realize where you need boundaries and maybe
Yes.
where you didn't have them. Would you say that that helped
Yes.
you kind of implement those
Mhm.
boundaries?
Yep. And it's I used to feel guilty about it, like not having that person close, because like my grandpa's always like, oh, we need to like be together on holidays, and they're your family and blah blah blah. But at the same time, I can still have a relationship and have boundaries and still save my heart and my family's heart a little bit, and
That's
our
very
feelings, I guess. Yeah.
um have you experienced any loss since we last recorded?
Not personally, but friends, I guess. Not super close friends, but some friends, and then just in the community, they've had losses. There was just a widow last week. I guess a woman in Wishick that lost her husband to a tragic accident, and I had planned on going to the funeral, and I just could not. It leading up to the funeral, I got very anxious, and I wanted to be there, but I knew it was not going to be good, so could not do it.
Have you thought about working on that relationship with your deceased husband?
I haven't, but it has been 9 years. You think I'd be over it by now, but there's
Well,
things, and it was the day, like June 9th was the day we buried him. It was my 5th wedding. Like we got married on that day, like my now husband. Like I picked a really good day to do all this, but then also so that person, that lady in town buried her husband on June 9th, and it was
mm,
too much on June 9th. And then there's a lot in history on June 9th for people in Wishick as well. There's just a lot of in the beginning of June. I don't know why now, like a lot of grief in the beginning of June. But
wow.
yeah.
And I want to circle back to what you said. Like, it's been 9 years. I should be over it by now. And I think we tell ourselves that even 2, 3, 4 years in, 40 years in,
Mhm.
people would say that. People say that to other people. You should be over it by now.
Yeah.
But what the thing is what that process, and this, what that process helps you do is become emotionally complete so that when those days come, they aren't as they don't feel as sharp. It's like it
Mhm.
kind of softens um the hurt a little bit.
I should have done a letter that day, but like, because I'm good with the day with Jared, not good with it, but like I know how to manage it. But then when that funeral came up, it was hard.
It's
And I knew, like,
close,
yeah. So I took a salad and I did some things around the church, but I just couldn't to do the funeral.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And I didn't even know him really that well. I just know her and her family. And it's still just, I mean, it brings back so many memories, and it's hard for that day.
I had someone ask me yesterday, what do you they're going to go visit somebody who's very ill and dying essentially. And she had asked me, what do you say to somebody who's dying? Or what do you say to somebody who's going through something like that? And because you had that experience of being a widow, um, is there anything that you would have liked to have said to her, or um, would like to share with anybody listening who may be experiencing that right now, that you found helpful, or that, from your experience, that you would like
Mhm.
to share?
Looking back, during like the planning process, I don't feel like I was there really, because I don't like, then a year later we buried my husband's dad. He died, passed away the day before, a year later. And I feel like I don't remember planning any of that stuff. I feel like I left it into a lot of the family's hands. And sometimes I wish I would have been more involved in picking things, and but I just emotionally could not do it. So I just think, like, as far as advice, grieve like how you want, because and there's no timeline. Like I say, I should be over it, but there really is no timeline. And there's some people that are quick to judge, and it's been this long, but can you really put a timeline on that? I don't know. I don't think you can, with children, with husbands, with anyone in your life. Like I don't think you can put a timeline on how long you should grieve, because or how, like I just don't think so. I feel I always, and I have told a widow this, like you should just grieve how long you want, how you want. Don't let people influence you. Keep those people close that want to be close, like let them in, because those are your true friends. I lost friends when Jared died, and it's not like I did anything. Like I'm not the one that made him pass away, and I still lost friends. So I just feel like your life will change. Um, and you're just going to have to learn how to cope with that. And I think your class would be a great option for that when you're ready. I don't think you should have to do it right away or push to do it right away, but eventually you need to start coping and learning how to cope. I didn't do the counseling thing. I maybe should have, but I didn't. So, but just talking to someone, learning how to deal and cope with things is very, very high up there, I think, on the advice.
And one thing I learned too, just working in the groups, having you in the group and working with other clients one-on-one since, the past 3 years, 4 years, is now I actually have lengthened the one-on-one program to 12
Oh,
weeks, and we work on 2 relationships. Because
oh,
because I think that, it's not this one and done.
mhm,
I think once you work on one and then you work on another significant relationship, it kind of solidifies what you're learning. And
mhm,
I think it just helps to really get a hang of the process, because it's a little bit of a learning curve.
mhm,
Um, it's new knowledge, it's new tools. Um, and so I'm happy to report that I've learned that you can't just work on one. It's
mhm,
working on two can help get that ball rolling, so that you feel like this really does impact me in a positive way.
mhm.
Um, how
I have to
is
agree.
Yeah, you kind of wish you would have been too.
Yeah, but I can tell that I've done it not to the full capacity, but, like, I've done it with other people in my life.
Mm,
Not probably as in depth or whatever, but I have done it with other relationships.
that's good to hear. So how do you think it's going through this program, and as your kids are getting a little bit older now and maybe asking different questions, how has the going through the program and what you learned influenced your parenting, maybe, and even you
Mhm.
yourself, like in how you parent?
So I remember specifically part of the class we made this timeline, and you're like, your dog dying, your fish dying, like that can impact every little thing in your life. And so we try to explain things, like Easton kind of a few years ago went through a thing with death. And so I got a few little kid books or whatever to be able to read to him. And now I can read those to Nori and Will. And um, I, I think explaining things and making it so that they know, like I feel like it was kind of taboo, like you go to a funeral, like people die, that's what goes on in life. Well, you still need to process it. Like a dog dying, you still need to process it. We had a dog die a year and a half ago. Like we needed to process it as a family because it was kind of traumatic. So I feel like that's helped me try to explain things to my kids too.
Do you have any tips on how you did that with your children?
Let them ask the questions, and no, don't let them feel like questions are bad or any question is bad. Just like let them ask the questions and give them the answers that they need, and don't fuel the fire, but don't make it taboo. Don't make it like you shouldn't talk about it. Hush, hush.
Right. Be honest. Help your
Yeah.
children be emotionally honest.
Yeah.
If they're angry, let them be angry about their dog dying. That's
Yeah.
okay.
My oldest is very an empath, and he feels a lot. So I have to do all the emotions with him.
That's good. I mean, and there has to be space for that, especially as a child who takes kind of in everything around them. It can be the world can be very overwhelming. Even the news, it's like you're watching the news and you talking to your friend, and your friend maybe went through something, and then your dog dies, like all these sad, heavy things can really be devastating to a child who is highly sensitive. And so thank you for bringing that up, that not a lot of parents really consider that their child isn't a crybaby, because a lot of parents might say, quit being a crybaby. They're just sensitive, more sensitive.
He
That's
had
neat.
a classmate that had a father pass away a few years ago, and well, I guess it's been a year and a half, and he said, that's so sad. And I said, well, you just need to be a good friend. You need to be there for him. And so I think that, he asked a lot of questions about that too. So he feels a lot.
Any resources that you have found that you have utilized yourself other than grief recovery, or anything else that you'd like to share?
I really haven't. I don't use many. If I do, I would go to like Pinterest, and sometimes there's worksheets or something, but
For the kids.
oh, well, and so I had put it out there because Easton was very interested on death and everything, and so I put out there like on Facebook what people did, and I have the book in one of their bookshelves, but there is a book about death. It's like dinosaurs and stuff, and kind of explains things. And I think I asked my pastor too, actually. I said, well, can you talk to him about it? Like, can he ask you questions? And but I got this book, and then he did some research too and gave me some other book titles, and I don't have those at the moment, but on me. But yeah, so I did go to my pastor and ask him, and we have driven around cemeteries before and talked about things too. So,
and even art.
yeah,
Allowing children to express themselves through art, like Play-Doh, crayons, colors, watercolors, in that way too.
We got memorial flowers for the dog.
Oh,
Yeah, Easton and his dad saw them in the store, so they got her memorial flowers. So
that's good. That's good.
he still talks about her. He talks about the cat that passed away 4 years ago. So he remembers a lot.
And how old is he now?
He's 7.
Old enough to understand.
Yes. He'll say, I miss this person. I miss this person. I wish I could have met this person. Like, he knows.
And so many adults will underestimate what children truly understand. I was 8 when my dad passed away, and people just didn't think I understood. It's like, okay, well, you see you see your dad in a coffin, and then, he's put in the ground, and then you don't see him anymore. It's like, okay, well, I understand they're not in my life anymore, and that's really sad. It's like, don't tell me I don't understand.
If mine's understanding at 5, 6, 7, you definitely were understanding at 8.
By 3 years old, we
Yeah.
have learned 75% of how to respond to life.
Yeah. Well, and at 3, that's when
adults.
he was asking about death. So
Yes, exactly.
3 and 4.
And I'm glad this came up too, because it's been something that I've said before, I think on a different podcast episode, but I need to put resources for books for children and stuff on my website.
And you need to have a class for children too.
You can't actually work
I
with
know.
children. That is the
Yes, right?
unfortunate thing. Yeah,
You have
that's
to take another class, right?
well, I can work with the adults of the
Oh,
children. So
oh,
there's the program Helping Children with Loss, but it's for the adults to help
oh,
the adults work with their own children.
okay.
And that's through the book. Actually, this might be a good resource for you. When Children Grieve
Mm,
is the other companion book to the grief recovery method, is When Children Grieve, and our Helping Children with Loss program is based on that book. So that would be a resource for anyone listening. But there is actually a program that I had a guest on my podcast, um, and she started an organization called Shielding Hearts. And I'm going to look, I've told her, and I plan to look into her program, because this program, you actually work with the kids, but it's not, it's, it's kind of along the lines of art and things.
mm,
But you bring it into schools, the school
mm,
system. So
that'd be cool.
yeah, I'm going to look into doing that. Um, so I'm not a licensed social worker, so that's where some,
Mm,
yeah, get the poo poo on that
mhm,
of
yeah.
working with kids. But um, it is a passion of mine for sure, because I've been there. So I understand that children just don't necessarily have that person in their life where they can feel like they can open up and share. Because oftentimes what happens too is, let's say your dad, right? Let's say your dad or someone close to you is dying or sick, and if or passes away, and your child is asking, what about grandpa? And
Mhm,
then you don't want to talk about it because it makes you sad. So then your child doesn't talk about it because they don't
mhm,
want to make you sad. So then what happens is nobody's talking about it.
mhm,
And it's this thing that you just don't talk about. You don't talk about grandpa, you don't talk about grandma, or whoever it is that passes away. Um,
mhm.
so so what are you looking forward to in the next 3 years?
Um, surviving 3 kids.
Getting them all in school, right?
Yeah. Yeah, one won't be, but the other ones will be. Yeah. But just building our life and still working on our relationships. Like even me and my husband, we're constantly learning every single day. Like I don't think you ever I feel like you learn about your spouse and everything, but I feel like you're learning together every single day because you've some things you've never dealt with, or your kids are getting older, so then situations change and you just learn. We're learning constantly together, how to handle things and how to deal with things. And um, I just see us having so much fun as a family. And also, I know in the next 3 or 10 years, probably we're going to be seeing some losses in our family and that we're going to have to deal with. And that's something that I'm dreading, but um, it's just reality, I guess. And it's not going to be fun for
But you
any
have
of my family.
tools. But you have
Yes.
tools.
Yeah. Yep.
And I gotta say too, like, just is there anything that you would like to discuss about being in the trenches of motherhood? And because you can kind of feel like, because you weren't anticipating, right? You weren't
Being a mother at
anticipating,
all.
right? And so like now being kind of in the, I'll say in the trenches of it, we were just talking about this, some friends and I, just the other day, and I said, yep, people always told me the days are long, but the years are short. And it's so true.
It
It's
is.
so true. And when you're in the trenches of it, it's like, it's really easy to lose yourself. So
Mhm.
how are you doing in as far as that goes, if you're open to sharing?
I go through my little tiffs where I'm like, I can't keep this house clean. And I get my little crying moments where I'm like, I'm a bad mom and blah, blah, blah. But the last couple of days, I've realized like the house can be messy. It will be clean someday. And we've been outside all day because it's been so beautiful. And that to me is the best medicine. And that's what makes my kids happy, what makes all of us happy. And dad is busy working in the field, and so we miss him terribly, but we play and we have fun. And when we can be with him, we do, and we have fun with him too. And life's just crazy. And I always say when it slows down, but it never has yet. It's just crazy busy. And I just let them enjoy life. And we play and play and play and eat and eat and eat and clean and clean and clean. And I just think you have to just have a little bit of faith and hope. And everyone tells you, like, just relax, you'll have kids, when you're going through infertility. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you just have to take life into your own hands and believe in science. And God put science on this world for a reason. And I think that IVF was a beautiful thing for us. And our third baby was a beautiful thing for us. And the first one was also beautiful because we didn't think we were ever going to get that chance. So I just think life is beautiful and it's short, and you just need to really enjoy it. And it's too short to be miserable. And obviously you go through those moments where you're not miserable, but you're just sad. And I feel like you have to be sad too. It's a balance. You can't always be happy, 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 I guess.
Well, and that can be exhausting too, to put on that
Yeah.
front of always,
Yeah.
like, I'm fine,
Yeah.
and that takes effort and energy. It's a waste of effort and energy. Instead of,
Yeah.
it takes less energy to be emotionally honest. Like, no, I'm not good today. I kind of need a mental break.
Yeah.
And
Well, my
sometimes,
kids need mental breaks sometimes too.
yeah, right. And from each other.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the hard balance too. It's like, that was the hardest part, I think, for me too, is like trying to find that individual time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that firstborn gets so much attention, and then the
Mm-hmm.
second one comes along and it gets a little harder, but that third, it's really tough.
Throws a wrench
to-
into things.
Yeah, it's really tough to feel like you're giving each child what they need, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can feel like you're failing in a lot of ways, but
Mm-hmm.
you do the best you can. And
And lean on each other. Like you have friends, you have other moms or dads or whatever, like lean on people, because they're going through the same thing. They just maybe don't show it as much, or you don't think they do, or, you might think you're alone.
I just heard of there's a couple of working moms, and they exchange like their days off, like they're watching
Oh,
each other's, like that's how they do it. Their kids, they're both newborns or
oh,
they're new parents, and that's what they do. So they
hmm,
just, they're raising each other's kids. They're doing it together. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you can find in friendship.
mm-hmm.
Um, if you have that support. And if you don't, find it, create
Yep,
it, ask.
yep.
How many people are so afraid to ask? Hey, I have this idea. What do you think? If we just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, here's one tip that I'll share with you. And it is something that we still talk about to this day. Our kids talk about it to this day. Is So I don't live on a farm. I never have, but a friend of ours did, or does. And we would have what's called farm days.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody brought their kids to the farm. And like the rest of us two of us lived on farm, two of us lived on farms, and two of us were city gals, right? But anyway, everybody brought their kids, the water games, whatever they did. And we just got together, like us women, moms got to talk and catch up. The kids got to have fun doing whatever they were doing. It was the best. It was the best. And, we did this in the summer sometimes, and those are the best memories. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they weren't even planned.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's just have a farm day today. And it doesn't always work, of course, because things and the phases of life, right? You go with the
Mm-hmm.
phases of life. Now, most of there's, two of us now, two of the four have, well, three of the four have day jobs outside, like we have places we need to be and
Mm-hmm.
things we need to do. So it doesn't always happen, but that's my tip. Create a farm day. Ask
Yeah.
your girlfriends, especially the other friends that live on farms, just get together, bring the
Mm.
kids, make it a
We have crazy
tradition.
ideas. Sometimes we go to the zoo with all of our kids and we're like, why did we do this? But then in the end, it's really fun for them. And they
Yeah.
might cry on the way home because they're so tired, but
But that's what I'm saying. You don't even need to drive anywhere. You don't need
yeah.
to like take them out anywhere. You don't need to like mess with the strollers and the diaper
Mhm.
bags and da da da
Mhm.
da. Just come together in
Yeah.
one spot and just let them explore and find
We
bugs
we do
and
try to get together with friends, but I mean, everyone's so busy. It's kind of, we just need to, and that's my thing too, is like, you just got to make the time.
yeah, just ask.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine too, she was like, she'll ask me and I'll say, I can't today. And I told her just recently too, I'm like, you know what? This was a good idea. We went
Mhm.
kayaking. I was like, this is a good idea. She's like, I said, just never stop asking.
Mhm.
It was it wasn't planned. It was like, she wanted to go. So she's like, hey, I want to go kayaking. You want to go? Yeah, I'll go.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think a lot of the times it's the spontaneous things that is where the best memories are made. So
Mhm.
that's my suggestion to any mom. Just get together with the girlfriends. It's important. It matters. It makes a difference for your
And you
mental
need to make
health.
time for yourself too.
That's true too. That's true
Get a
too.
babysitter. Don't, I know it's expensive and I know like, oh my gosh, I have to have a babysitter watch my kids, but get the babysitter because you need to have your own time. You need to have date nights. Like we definitely don't do enough date nights, which we will someday when the kids are older. Right now we're focusing on our children, but get the babysitter.
Yeah. And speaking of which, people might be listening and be like, your house is really quiet for 3 kids. Do you have a babysitter?
This summer, I got my littles into daycare for 2.5 days a week.
Good
So
on
they're at
you.
daycare today. And my older one, I made him shush out of the house for a little while. He might come in here in a little bit. I told him a half hour. So that's about coming up. I'm
Yeah.
surprised they're not back.
No, so that's good. I mean, that you're taking your own advice, right? I mean, even
Mhm.
if it's just one day a week, you know,
I do
and
work at McTwist, the Dairy Queen in town, one
mhm,
day a week. So I get an adult interaction.
and that's important. And
Yeah.
that is kind of you time. That is mental health
It
time,
is.
right?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Get to
It's only
talk
for
to
like
people.
6 hours, but I love it.
It's something to look forward to get out of the house, right? And
Yes.
just,
Yep.
yeah, and
Because if
not
I'm
have
here, I'm
to
like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that.
and leave
Yeah.
the house without a diaper bag.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Or
exciting.
having, did I forget a kid or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm so glad things have really just the sun has just been shining on your life, and I'm so happy to have been able to catch up with you today, and thank you for sharing what's
Thanks for
been
having
up
me,
with
Jen.
you. Yeah. And um I do offer alumni groups. I
I should
may
maybe
have
do
to
that
do
someday.
that. Yeah. um I've had, well, and I can do it online now too.
Oh.
Don't have to pack a diaper bag. So yeah, so I'll have to maybe get something like that lined up in the
Yeah.
future. Is there
There's a few of
anything?
us around.
Yes, there are. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Um, I don't think so. Just live life to the fullest because it's so short. You never know. You never know.
You never know. That's for sure. Especially as you just described, that accident that happened, right?
Mhm.
You don't know. You can leave
Mhm.
your house one day and not walk in the door later.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
oh, I was going to ask you too. Do you ever go out to the farm where your husband's working and have a picnic with the kids?
We go out there because we have a horse named
Oh,
Marlin, and the kids want to go see the horse all the time. So we go see Marlin quite often.
okay. But where your
And
husband is farming, though,
yeah,
like,
oh yeah, we take
oh,
him food, and I actually have to take him chemical. He called me right before this and said, "Can you bring me some chemical?" So
oh,
I'm also a farm wife. Like I have, yeah, and we want to move to the farm someday. So we'll
okay.
be out there probably in a few years, I would say.
Oh, so you're not on the farm.
Nope, we're in town. We live in his
Oh,
grandma's house.
okay.
We bought his grandma's house
Oh, my
in town.
mistake.
Yeah, but we will move to the farm. His parents live out there, but they're kind of transitioning. So
Well, farm days are in your future, I
yeah,
bet.
so women can come to my house for farm days because I plan to have all the things. My husband's like, "Oh, we're gonna have a funny farm," and I'm like, "You better believe it. I'm going to that exotic animal sale, and we're gonna have fainting goats and
Oh,
peacocks."
fun. That'll be
So
fun.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Patty. And it's been so fun catching up with you. And I wish you a wonderful rest of 2023. It's halfway, we're halfway
Halfway,
through.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Time
So
goes too fast.
sure does. Well,
Well,
many
thank you.
blessings to you and your family.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. And remember, when you unleash your heart, you unleash your life. Much love.